What's going on, everyone? We're just kind of getting ready to go at the last minute. A few technical issues, but we're here, ready to go. I'm joined, as always, by Aarron Van Buren. Aarron, how are you, dude?
I'm great. This is the football oasis for the diehards, and it's Thursday night, so it's going to be a fun 60 minutes.
100%. Now, Kyler Burd was not able to join us. He had a couple things going on, and also he had a commitment that he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it because of, and also there is a big fire near where he lives. So hopefully hopefully that he's not having to evacuate or anything because of that. Hopefully. But obviously we're hoping everything's okay for Kyler there, but he did let us know that he wasn't sure if he'd make it. So we've got me and Aarron to hold down the fort. And we'll look forward to seeing Kyler when he's able to be back with us next time. I want to say, hey, real quick to the folks who are in the chat. We got Otis Driftwood. I will be there, brother. Well, we appreciate that.
At 2:34 in the morning.
Yeah.
What a timestamp.
Really. So awesome. So hopefully he's here with us now. We got Aarron, who's always so thoughtful and just has the nicest, most thoughtful things to say. Always so encouraging. We appreciate you. Always excited and ready to hear one of the best streamers around, with two of the best streamers around right today. So and then truly always look forward to hearing from you, and bummed you can't do it every day. Hey, it would be fun, but might be a lot.
He'll just be pushed by the 4-letter network by that point.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But really appreciate you when you're always so thoughtful. Really appreciate you. We got Franklin Carlson, who's really looking forward to this season. I'm looking forward to every season, but I have some optimism, which is kind of to be the theme today. We're going to talk about optimism today. Hope we go to the Super Bowl this year. Don't we all? Right. And let's go. So thank you to everyone who's here. And I know we got some other folks who are going to jump into the chat. So as it gets going, we'll get some of your comments in there. And optimism is going to be our theme for tonight. I wrote an essay, sort of an article this last week, and I reached out to Walter Mitchell for Revenge of the Burd, and great guy who I've done some work with. And I said, hey, would you take a look at this and would maybe be willing to maybe publish on the site? He's like, yeah. And he gave me some feedback, and then he published it as part of so he wrote an article about optimism, and kind of a large segment of it was what I wrote about being an optimistic fan, and kind of it was kind of a long conversation about that. But anyway, so if you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to do so. I think you'll enjoy it. There's a link on the community tab for that. And I don't have a link in the description of this video yet, but I'll put it in there. So thought we would kind of build off that theme, and kind of the question we're going to ask today is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you? And we're going to ask some different questions, and me and Aarron will talk about that, but we'll get your comments, on a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you about? And we'll go from there. Real quick, I want to say to Grandizer, thanks for being here. Hey, Joseph, Aarron, how are you today? What is new? Hitting the like button and show support as always. We really appreciate it. Grandizer is a great supporter of content creators across the board. He, Grandizer is, a Dolphins fan, but drops in and supports my channel, Payo Time channel, and in general really does a great job of supporting folks, who are putting in time to do what they love. So appreciate that.
He's also part of the Eric Barrier fan club population too.
Right, along with Mr. Van Buren here. So yeah, it is an esteemed club indeed. So appreciate you being here. So we're going to go through these questions. I've got a list of questions, but obviously we'll take your comments and questions. In fact, why don't we actually go ahead and Carlson's got a great question. Think Trey Bride will be the next Travis Kelce. That is a comp that some have given. That's a very optimistic comp, but the skill set is kind of he's that type, if that makes sense. Not necessarily he's got to prove he can get there. But what do you think about that?
Well, I think he's got a chance to have a good rookie season, especially because with the Hopkins suspension, and now you got Ertz and McBride, so you can run a lot more 12 personnel. And everybody knows how much of a threat James Conner was last year, and he didn't really have the runs to pop off an 80-yarder here or there, but just to get effective yards, like think about how effective this offense is going to be if they can utilize that personnel package properly, and that's what I think. So I wish I could give you a number off the top of my head that would be realistic, but I don't have one at this time. So
Yeah. Like, I did my video on Trey McBride, and I think the high end comp, um, that I did was, Kittles, right, from San Francisco, right? And that's sort of the type of player he could be if he maxes out his talent, right? He's a good blocker, good receiver. Kelsey's obviously a player in that class, but to say he's going to be that good is obviously you can't say that yet. He has to prove it. Only so those are the two best tight ends in football, or two of the best, along with Darren Waller, right? And yeah, so I think his player type, his player profile is more like Kittle than Kelsey, because
yeah,
Kittle's a better blocker. But the question of, is he going to be that good? I mean, he's got to prove it, and that's a long shot, but he could, right?
the other thing that Trey McBride has going for him is that standards for a tight end in Arizona are as low as they can get. I mean, honestly, like before, we got Zach Ertz, we were just hoping like a tight end would end up maybe having like 300 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach Ertz goes out last year and has the second best season of a Cardinal since Jackie Smith.
In a partial season with the team. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. The tight end position has not been good for the Cardinals. It's never been. It's never been emphasized. It's never been good. We've never had a great one until recently. So yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic about his potential. I think he's going to be solid. Is he going to be at that level? I don't know. That's asking a lot, but I think he's going to be really good. Rashad thinks I'm guessing that's your optimism level, 6.5. That's pretty optimistic, I'd say, in terms of getting that level. So I think Trey McBride's he's already, when the draft pick happened, there was so much like, wait, what are we doing taking a tight end here?
Exactly.
So people were like really confused by it, but I think people are warming up to him because he's just such an infectious player, his energy, and he's a player you want to root for. And as long as he performs on the field, I think he's gonna become a fan favorite. He's just got that kind of personality that you root for. So I'm pretty optimistic about him as a player. So the first on a scale of 1 to 10, we're gonna start with something that precedes the actual season. So most of our questions will be about the upcoming season. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you that Kyler Murray gets an extension before the start of the season? So on a 1 to 10 scale, how optimistic are you that this is going to happen, that there will be a Kyler Murray extension before we're playing games this season? Aarron, what do you think?
I think it, I debated between this, but I'm going to be, kind of like Rashad here. I'm going to give it a 6.5.
Okay.
I have a feeling that they want to get it done. Obviously Murray wants it done too, but I want to know, because are they really going to do it this year and see, well, Murray, how good are you without Hopkins for 6 games? And meanwhile, Murray at the same time could be like, are you going to have Hopkins around? Because if I'm correct, Hopkins is a free agent after this year, correct?
I feel like he's got
Maybe one more year.
I don't think he's a free agent after this year. I think his contract goes longer. I'll look that up while you're.
So I mean, there could just be that, like, well, you got to show, the Cardinals have to be like, you have to show us this, and Murray could be like, you have to show me you're going to keep this guy around. So that's like the only potential bottleneck that I see. Yeah, the cap space did go up this year, but also we're going to have to figure out what we're doing with JJ Watt pretty soon, and just cap wise, I'm sure there's ways to work around it because the Rams have shown us that the cap is a lie. But I would say 6.5. And at this point, like whether you're full Kyler Murray or you're not, the thing is, like, the guy's going to be our quarterback. There's not really anybody as a rookie or a veteran out there that is going to come in and take the job. So we're going to have to ride this train until it reaches its final destination. So 6.5.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to kind of answer that question, Hopkins is signed through 2024.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, we've got, let's see. So, Franklin's saying 7, but then also 5. So I don't know if that's what you changed your mind or if that's what you meant. Initially, I'm going to go 8. I think the Cardinals intend to get a deal done during the summer. They've more or less said, when talking about when asked about all the stuff that happened with the letter from the agent and everything, their response has been, when you look at these deals, they usually get done in the third year, after the third year, during the summer. Now that the draft's done, we can focus on that. I think they intend to, and the only reason it's not a 10 is that those 2 points are if they can't come to an agreement, right? If Kyler doesn't like the number and he decides, that I'm just going to play and show whatever, or they can whatever. But I think they intend to, and I'm giving it an 8. Yeah, that's kind of my take there. Rashad, for Kyler's 10, the deal is going to get done before the season. So, I think Rashad and I are of the same mind. I'm just leaving a little room for that the negotiations don't go well, if that makes sense. That's the only reason it's not a 10 for me. But I think so, right? So real quick, let's get a couple of the we underscore jumped in here with our overall defense ranking 11th for the 2021 season, also plus 14 turnover differential, top 5, as well as our offense, passing, rushing, points per game, top 11. Could we replicate or do better this season? So underscore, we're not gonna answer this question as such right now, and the only reason I'm saying that is because some of the questions we have set up, I think, get to the ethos of what you're asking here. So it's a great question, and we're going to ask it in a couple different ways. So if you'll bear with us and forgive us there, but absolutely, that's kind of what we're going to want to talk about, right? So yeah, I think it's going to get done. Real quick, a couple questions. We have 13 million cap space due to Jordan Hicks release. Right now, so I mean, his release I think happened. We don't have 13 million right now, but we're gonna have another 10 million, I think, when the Jordan Phillips. Okay, yeah, it's because of Jordan Phillips release. So this is my understanding of it. Right now, we have about 2 to 3 million in cap room right now, but the Hicks contract was designated as a June 1st, which means it comes off then. So there's going to be an extra 10 million there.
Doesn't it apply to the next seasons as well as a post June 1st?
So, well, the way the June 1st happens is it's like they split. I think there is a dead cap. Yes. The next year there will be a dead cap hit. Part of the dead cap hit is hitting the next year, but the relief is 10 million, if that makes sense. So there's a 10 million, there's 10 million in cap relief, but there's also like 2 or 3 million dead cap hit that we're taking with that. And then the same next year. But the June 1st designation of that means it should impact then. And just one more thing, and this is a thing just in general, I learned this about the salary cap this year, to remember about the salary cap. The way the cap is calculated is important because in the preseason, all through the offseason, the preseason, the way they calculate your cap has to do with the top 51 contracts. The 51 biggest cap hits are calculated, right? And then, so like, right now they have many more than 51 players under contract, but the 51 biggest cap hits are added up and those count against the cap hit. So like let's say, for example, if you sign someone for 3 million right now, it doesn't mean you just add 3 million to the cap. It means like player number 51 on the list gets bumped. and that player's contract might be like $800 and something thousand. So you might add $2,115,000 to the cap because you bumped that person down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, when the regular season starts, it's the 53 on the roster. But up until that point, it's at 51. So that's it. So it's a little bit of funny math. And then you add to it the fact that they are able to carry over some from the previous year if they had cap room left. And there's usually a couple million like that. So yeah, the cap is kind of tricky. So anyway, a little capology there. So anyway, though, I know we got a little off, and that's on me, I guess. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you? Ready for this one? This is how we're getting to the meat. That the Cardinals will fix their late season issues. That this Cardinals team, not necessarily saying that they're going, in my opinion, this isn't necessarily saying that they're going to they have to go 8-2 down the stretch or something, but that they don't collapse, right? That they're better than 500 at least, right? In the last 6 to 8 games. Mm-hmm. How confident are you that they're going to fix that? Real quick, I want to say, hey to Agent 47, what's up? Appreciate you being here. Right. So Aarron, we're getting to the meat here, right? How confident on 1 to 10 are you that they're going to fix the late season issues? And at least, again, they not necessarily mean they have to finish really hot, but like what we've seen from them is just collapses, right? Mm-hmm. I think a good way to put it is that they're better than 500 over the back half of the season.
Yeah. I'm going to go out on the limb. I'm going to actually give it an 8. I think having that bye week late is going to help. You're going to be able to settle down anything that could be kind of going off the rails, especially having to go to play in Mexico and then coming back and then taking on the spark plug, no pun intended, Chargers. And then from there, it's just, you got 2 home games and 3 road games. So it's just being able to take care of business. I think the way that they'll do this is they'll go 4-0 at home. They would have to go 4-0 at home. And then a 4-3 record, basically I think Atlanta is still a trap game. Russell Wilson is going to Russell Wilson us, unfortunately, one more time. And then that 49ers game at the end of the season is a complete toss-up. It can go either way. So you're looking at 4-3 or 5-2 towards that back half. And I think the changes up front, getting a little bit younger with the edge rushers and Myjai Sanders and what's the other guy?
Cameron Thomas.
Yes. I really think those guys are going to be able to refresh the defensive line. And help give our secondary some support. And I also think the first half of the season is going to be pretty light, at least on paper. So that way you can give JJ Watt a game off against, freaking like Seattle, or at least one of those Seattle games, or, you can give somebody just to save him for the longer run, because we know how valuable he is towards the long run of the season. So I'm going to give it an 8. I think they go 4-3 in the last 7 games.
It's interesting because I think most often I tend to be a little more optimistic than you are. I think in general about the team. And that's not meant as a slight. I just tend to lean a little.
Yeah,
more.
No, I get it.
Yeah, you get it. I'm just backhanding, complimenting. No, but you're more optimistic than I am about this, and I'm still probably more optimistic than a lot of fans. And I think Underscore has a great question. I think really this is the question that this is the thing we need to figure out. Yeah. Because most fans think it's a coaching issue. I think from what I sense, most Cardinals fans think, and I get why they think that, because Cliff has that going back to college, that record. And, so for me, when I look at this, there are 2 narratives, right? There are two potential explanations for the late season slides. right? Now, the first couple seasons he was with the Cardinals, listen, this team, went 3 wins to 5 wins to 8 wins. So they're rebuilding, improving, getting things into place. So the first couple of seasons, I think I think it could just be that they were young and inexperienced. But when we look at last season, it becomes a question of, was it a depth issue because of the injuries, which it makes it a roster issue, right? Which if you're a Cardinals fan, that's what you actually want to hope it is, because they had an unusual, I think they had some unusual bad luck with injury in terms of some of their best players getting injured. Watt, Hopkins, Alford was their best cornerback, right? So if it's the players, then it's what I've been saying all off season, is they need to fix the depth. And I do think they've gotten some nice depth at a few of those positions through the draft and free agency. They didn't go with top line talent. But it could also be, is it something about Cliff's scheme? What a lot of people are saying is because the air raid offense, the way he does it, is they don't move receivers around, right? Because they keep the receivers where they're at so that they can keep the tempo going, right? And then, but the receivers alternate, they shift their routes. So the question is it one of those? So if it's the players, then I'm optimistic because I think it's a depth issue and I think they've done some nice things there and will continue to. If it's a coaching issue, then that is harder to fix unless Cliff makes some changes, which he might. I hope he will. I'm going to give it a 6, which is still better than 50-50, but not as optimistic as you. What do you think about that?
That was a great response. I mean, I'm not trying to be like, wow, thanks for your response, like that awkward Blackboard chat you have in college. Right. But I think that it's actually, and of course, not to be cliche, but it is a little bit of both. You have the coaching issue that I mean, all you need to know is the Detroit game and that goal line situation. First and goal, pass. Second and goal, pass. Third and goal, pass. Or maybe it was a run then. But it was one run out of 4 plays on the 1-inch line with James Conner. You can't make it any easier than that. I also think and I've said this before, we've been searching and searching and searching, or just waiting for the original creative Cliff Kingsbury to come back out, because 2019, that was fun. I mean, I remember that little it was like a bubble orbit swing pass to Christian Kirk against Baltimore, and he nearly scored, or maybe he did, but it worked so well that he was wide open and he could have scored. That's what I remember kind of having some optimism going into 2020 about. The other thing that's going to, I think, kind of help the coaching issue is that Sean Jefferson just got promoted to be an assistant head coach. So my first thought was so does that mean offensive coordinator? Because Sean Jefferson, for those who don't remember, is the wide receivers coach. And his son is Van Jefferson, who plays for the Rams. So we'll have to see what kind of interesting dynamic that goes on, because you'll have Jefferson as, that assistant head coach, but then there's Sean Kugler, who is run game coordinator / something head coach.
Something.
I know he's offensive line too, but it was a weird title. So there's that. The final thing that makes this really cloudy is the players. The players went to Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury last year and asked for them to take away OTAs. They went from 10 to 3. How does that work in terms of understanding and getting depth and reps later on in the season when, oh, hey, we haven't practiced this, or we don't have the young guys who have ran this route in practice before to do this, or played this defensive scheme, like Marco Wilson ended up being tossed in there. So there should be no reduced OTAs. Hopefully, in a perfect world, everyone shows up and does them. So that's my response to that. And, I'm still trying to be, positive here, and it's right around that 8 for me still.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
going to hold out on him.
I respect that. I'm hopeful that you're right. I mean, I definitely lean towards the giving the benefit of the doubt between the depth and the maybe, I mean, Cliff, as much as people want to, trash his play calling, he has made some adjustments each year. He's using tight ends more than he did his first year. Hopefully he's going to use them even more. He has made some adjustments. Maybe they're not enough, but he has, right? Real quick, Agent 47, this Cardinals right now has a better depth than last season. So in my opinion, the roster is deeper. They've lost some key players. So for example, okay, pass rush is deeper, but they lost Chandler Jones. So the top end talent's down a little bit. But like last year, they had Marcus Golden, Chandler Jones, Dennis Gardick was kind of recovering from an injury, but they didn't use him much. And
Zach
then they
Allen
had,
kind of got in there.
I'm sorry?
Zach Allen got in there a little bit.
Zach Allen, I think of him as the interior defensive lineman, but he gets some pass rush. But in terms of outside linebacker, it was like, Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden, Devin Kennard, and those were really the three guys that really were mainly doing anything. They got a little bit of play from Dimikaji, and then Gardick didn't really, didn't really do what he did the year before. This year they lost, Chandler Jones, but they still have Golden, Gardick, Kennard, Dimikaji, and then the two rookies, right? So it's deeper, but the top end talent lost a little bit. Offensive line is deeper, and I think that's one position group where they are better because basically it's all the same starters from last year, except they've added Will Hernandez, right? And instead of Max Garcia, I think he's an upgrade from Max Garcia. And then they drafted those two guys on day 3 that I think actually have a lot of potential. So I think they're deeper at a lot of positions, but I think they need to get another cornerback and defensive interior lineman. But
yeah, it's interesting that you classify him as a like an inside guy because technically I would too, but ESPN has him as our starting right D end. So
it's tough because here's the deal. Part of the deal with that is like he's subjective. A D. Well, here's kind of the deal. At least the way I see it. The Cardinals base is a 3-4 defense, but right. So they have the nose tackle, then the 2-3-4 defensive ends, or sometimes people call them a tackle and an end. Yeah. And then they have the outside linebackers, right? So when they're in that 3-4 look, he's one of those ends with JJ Watt, right? And then they have the nose tackle. When they switch to the nickel, then they go to that, that 4-2, whatever look, right? 4-2-5 or whatever, right? And so then he becomes a defensive tackle and the outside linebackers become defensive ends on that look. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he's a 3-4 end, right? Which is still to me a defensive interior, but it's all semantics maybe. But real quick, CalDog has a good question. Can the two inside linebackers make a huge splash this year? That's a big issue in my humble opinion. And I agree we need better play out of that, right? And Mr. Marlowe, so defensive end, nose tackle, defensive end. So he's a defensive, right, exactly. Yeah. So what do you think about the two linebackers this year?
In terms of Simmons and Collins?
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think we're going to have? Are they going to? Because they, we're banking a lot. We're banking a lot on those two guys. Do you think they're going to take a step forward?
Well, I think Simmons has already done that. Mm-hmm. Collins. If we're doing 1 to 10 here scale like we've been doing, I'm going to give him a 5. Okay. He made some splashes last year, but also just like every Cardinals rookie, it seems to be, unless your name is Kyler Murray, you just don't play. And so there's so much that we can't really evaluate him if we don't really have any film or us watching him on Sundays. So I'll give it a 50-50 chance of that happening. But if there's one person who's going to save this run defense, I think it's going to be Zaven Collins.
Yeah.
Which, me saying that when he was drafted, I don't think I would ever have told myself that I would say that. But I remember him making plays. Like he made a huge play against Dallas last year. I think he forced a fumble. Dak Prescott one he did. And then I just remember him in the preseason, getting in there, like one of the first plays against the Chiefs, just blowing it up too. So I think he's a sound run fitter. The infamous Bill Davis here on, TCR Live, coached him up well for that. So the Cattle Dog, to answer your question, I don't think it will be a huge splash, but I think it will be a solid success.
Yeah, I'm tempted to go between a 6 and a 7 here. I'm gonna go ahead and be a little more lean optimistic with 7. Like, I think Collins looked good until he got the shoulder banged up midway through the season. But when he played in limited downs, but he looked good. He popped at moments. And I'm bullish on Collins. I think Collins is going to be a solid linebacker. He might make some mistakes here and there, with the responsibility of the mic, but I think he's going to be good. I think he's really talented. Simmons played more, but he had his moments, but he also didn't grade real well. He actually had it below a 50 grade in PFF. And I know PFF isn't everything, but he struggled a bit. I think they're going to take a step forward. Really, to me, actually, the biggest question has to do more with the defensive interior line, because I think that's one of the things that's kind of held them back, is they just don't have those guys taking up the blocks like they need them to. And that's why we really want, why I really wanted a run stuffer in the draft. So, like, if they're not getting enough help with the defensive tackles, then that's the thing I would worry about.
Yep. And that was something that I somehow escaped my mind. There's so much of a linebacker's success is tied to the defensive front, and being in a 3-4. I mean, unless you are the guy, it's going to be hard to do that on your own.
Yeah, you got that's what they call like that 2 gap, right? Where the defensive linemen kind of have to kind of monitor those 2 gaps and create those gaps for the linebackers to make plays. So we'll see, right? Mm-hmm. I'm still going to lean optimistic because I know we didn't really get a nose tackle in here. I think there's still a chance they draft one. Sign one.
Akeem Hicks, point. For the love of everything.
Right.
Akeem Hicks, please.
I will say this, so like, and I know this is an if, but if Rashard Lawrence can stay healthy, when he came back last year, he looked good. Like, and I know health has been an issue with him, but with Rashard Lawrence, midway, kind of late in the season, got back healthy and he got in there. He was stopping the run. If Watt's healthy, I know that's a big if. So there's a lot of ifs there. But if they can have a little more luck with health, maybe they'll get enough there. We'll see. Let's see. So that's a great question. I want to real quick say hey to Paul. Appreciate you being here. By the way, we talked about this a little bit earlier. June 2nd, we gain 10 million cap space. Jordan Phillips post June 1st cut. This may help with gain some talent. And I know this isn't kind of part of the questions we have, but let me ask you, what do you think if the Cardinals are what do you think are the positions the Cardinals need to address still, if with the kind time signings? What do you think they need to do?
Corner, absolutely corner. There's got to be some sort of veteran corner. Of course, Stephon Gilmore was just floating out there, and then he landed in Indianapolis of all places, which that defense is going to be really good. So I have not looked at the free agent cornerbacks in a while, but there's got to be somebody or something that we can make some sort of trade or signing, because the corners just, I mean, we weren't the worst group, but we also weren't the best. I think we kind of lucked out on the schedule a little bit. And also, when you're earlier in the season, when you're able to play up and you can blitz people, then, you're going to create havoc on quarterbacks, and that's what we were getting. So I would do a cornerback right away.
I would agree. And, I think we can, the cornerback room has less depth. I think right now the cornerback room is actually right now, here's what the cornerback room is the same room as last year, but instead of Alford, we have Gladney. It's all the same key players. It's Murphy, Wilson, Gladney instead of Alford. And they re-signed Antonio Hamilton, and they've got, Breon Borders. Right. And then they drafted, Christian Matthew, who's I think is probably practice squad, maybe at best, special teams guy. So like, it's not, I'd say it's, like I say, it's worse, but it's equally as deep, if that makes sense. It's the same number of players deep, NFL players deep, but Gladney right now hasn't shown that he's as good as Alford. He has the potential, but that's a lot to bank on. So if they sign a cornerback, even if they bring back Alford, right, which I'd be all for, re-sign Alford or sign someone like him, right? Get a veteran cornerback in there And then all of a sudden it is deeper, right? It is the same group as last year plus Gladney, and then it's deeper.
So
go ahead.
I'm
sorry.
I just pulled up the list of available free agent corners.
Mm-hmm.
There is 33-year-old Joe Hayden.
I wouldn't hate that.
Neither would I. There's the pride of Kenosha, Wisconsin, Trey Waynes, who was formerly on the Bengals. Kyle Fuller, who used to be
that.
Chris Harris at 32, Janoris Jenkins, AJ Bouye, that's a pretty decent corner. And then kind of gets into the bottom there. So
yeah. Give me one of those guys plus the guys we got now. We don't have a star, but we'll be fine. There's depth. That's you're 5 deep with what I think are serviceable NFL cornerbacks, a couple young guys with potential to take a step forward, right? So I agree, a cornerback, and I also agree. I would like to get defensive line, particularly. I think what we need is a 6'2", 320-pound run stuffing nose tackle, because we sign.
We need another Gabe Watson, 2008,
right? The guy I like is Danny Shelton. That's the guy I'd want to go after. I know he's not a world beater, but like he's a former first-round pick. He's been good against the run. And you don't need him to be a star, and he's probably going to be cheap. And he's under 30 still. I can tell you're not, but like.
No, I'm reacting to Mr. Mono's comment.
Okay.
I don't want anything to do with Kevin King.
Oh, okay.
As someone who grew up in Wisconsin and knows the pain. Yeah, no.
So, but I think we need that. I think like the defensive ends, Kingsley Kiki Kingsley or
you had it right first time.
Yeah, okay. I think he's a nice depth piece. You add him to Zach Allen, JJ Watt, and then Michael Dogbe, they still got, that's fine, but get that nose tackle, right? I'm hearing a lot of people talk about Sue. I'm not all about him, but
I think he's the Spitfire that we need to get in the head of the Rams players, because they just yap all the time.
Yeah. And like Linval Joseph, get a veteran like that. And I also that I'd be all for that, absolutely, right? Aquatic Ambulance. I want to be positive, but we will be bums this year. Well, that sounds like definitely sounds right. Optimistic there, right? But yeah, defensive interior help. That I think that's a key. And I'd be all for bringing back Alford. He knows the system 100%. I know injury's been an issue with him, but with the depth they have, I'm more comfortable taking that risk. If we get 12 games out of Alford, but we've got more depth. I'm sorry?
I mean, I was just saying that would be a win.
Right. Yeah. 100%. So I'm with that. Right. And yeah, why not bring back Alford? I don't know if he'd take the vet minimum or not, but I don't think it'd take a lot to sign him. Even if he hasn't been signed by someone else. So it might be a little more than the vet minimum, maybe not, but it's not going to be a huge contract, because if someone was going to pay him that, he'd already be signed. Right.
Right.
So yeah, if someone gets hurt, Alfred could step. I think Alfred would be starting, actually, because he was our best cornerback last year. He played really well. So that's what I think. I agree. I think defensive tackle, run stuffer, and then a cornerback, right? So going back, great questions and comments, everyone, by the way. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you that the Cardinals will have double-digit wins this year? On a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you that they're going to have double-digit wins?
Let me just get another quick peek at the schedule here. I'm just going to browse it. I'll give it a 7. I think the first half of the season, or for like first 9 or 10 weeks, alternating home and away games, it does get better than that. It's not too brutal. It's not bad. And the longest away stretch is 2 weeks. So that's leaving in, a couple of games to drop, or a game or two, because of the Hopkins 6. And for whatever reason, some other inexplicable loss that just always seems to happen around like week 12.
Right.
But I think they're going to to do it. I think if they don't do it, it would be almost kind of a holy crap. We're really going to have to figure out what are we doing, and changes might have to be made.
I'm right there with you. I think it's I mean I think right now my kind of guess is 10 wins. When I look at the schedule, I go between 10 and 11 wins, and they've got some tough stretches, but I think they're I think this is I think the late season slide has really influenced how people see this team, but I think they're better than that.
Yeah.
So I'm with you with a 7 there. Underscore's got an 8 there. He thinks the Cardinals play better as underdogs, and it's been proven through the past season. Okay, could be, yeah. Mr. Milo 10-7 probably equals playoff in the NFC this. Yeah, with the added wild card team, right? I think that gets in. Paul's saying even if Kyler holds out, I don't think Kyler's holding out.
No, he's not.
You're saying 10, even if Kyler holds out. Okay, so you think so I'm not sure if you're saying for you it's a 10. Are you saying 10? You're saying 10 wins even if Kyler holds out. Maybe I do not think Kyler's holding out. I think they're going to get a deal done, and if they don't, I think he's still going to play.
Last quarterback to hold out was Matt Leinart. So
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I don't think he's holding out. I know there's been some people kind of said there's been whispers of that, but I don't think that's happening. You are saying 10. Okay. I'm glad you're optimistic too then. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I feel pretty good. I mean, listen, the range, I think that if there's injuries and everything kind of the wheels fall off, I think this team is 6 or 7 wins. That's like worst case scenario. I think this team, I know, like, yeah, it's Colt McCoy. I'll tell you, and I'm not wishing for this, obviously, but like if Kyler held out or was injured or something happened and Colt McCoy was our starting quarterback all year long,
we'd be okay.
I think this team wins at least 6 games with Colt McCoy.
Yeah.
Just maybe even 7, but I'd be tough to win more than that. So that's to me, the floor. But I think 10 wins is kind of 10 or 11s where I feel comfortable. But the ceiling on this team is to be the best team in the NFL if things go right. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I know not everyone believes that, but they have that talent. Yeah. Leinart holding out was a blessing, right? So there you go.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, let's see, Mr. Mono. I honestly think the NFL talking heads are too optimistic about the 49ers. I think we meet them for the number 2 slot in the NFC West. I agree.
They are the most Jekyll and Hyde team. You turn the magic 8 ball 1/8 of an inch and you get a completely different result, and that's what the 49ers are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I listen, the 49ers went really far last year, so I was down on them, and they did better than I thought they would.
Started 2-5. Everybody thought they were done.
Yeah. So I'm saying Kyler's only worth 4 wins. I think he's worth a minimum of 4 wins, but that's not nothing. That's pretty significant. I think that's noteworthy. But I think he's at least worth 4 wins, and I think potentially more. Let's see. So okay, there's a lot of different thoughts here. I feel like 10 wins to 11 wins is where the kind of that median range. But I think this team could be that team that went 10-2 or what 8-2 in the first 10 or whatever, or 7-0.
You're right.
If this team gets the depth right and gets that late end slide, this team could be 13, 14 wins. I'm picking 10 wins to kind of be that median, but like it wouldn't shock me if they surprise everyone like that. So, okay. So how on a scale of 1 to 10, let's a little bit different direction here. Still looking at the offense, but how confident are you that Hollywood Brown will be a star in this offense?
I'm just going to give it a 6. I think there's a lot of different ways to distribute the ball, especially with Trey McBride in the offense now, that it's not like it's too many mouths to feed. It's like you'd be remiss to not spread the ball around. And unless he's just a home run hitter who takes advantage of everything he's going to get, then he's not going to have the yards. He probably will be a important piece in the scheme. I just think that with how much attention he's going to command, along with AJ Green, that Rondale Moore has a really good chance to break on out, and the wonders that it will do for the running game and whatever they want to do out of the backfield with passing too. So I give it a 6.
Yeah, like the only thing that makes me not want to go like a 10 or a 9 is what you're talking about in terms of the ball distribution. That when Hopkins comes back, you've got Hopkins, Ertz, AJ Green, Rondale Moore. And what we saw first half of last season when they were winning was they were distributing the ball a lot, right?
Yes.
They were spreading it out. And even when Hopkins was there, right, who is historically a target monster, right? So I think it depends on what you mean by a star, right? Like if you mean he makes huge plays, he's effective, efficient, he's a big part of the offense, even if he's not necessarily putting up league leading numbers, then yeah, he's going to be a star in that regard. But I'm probably somewhere in that 6 to 7 of, is he going to become like, a guy who gets 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns with Hopkins coming back and with all the other players, that's going to be tough. But I could also see him becoming like Kyler's favorite target, But I think I'm kind of with you that distribution is going to be tough, right?
As long as DeAndre Hopkins is on the roster when he comes back from the suspension, there is no way that Hollywood Brown should be getting more targets than DeAndre Hopkins. No offense to Brown, but Hopkins has been a freakish athlete for so long. The other thing to know of why my rating is so low is that if my math is right, Marquise Brown had 1,008 yards and Christian Kirk had 982. So what's the difference there? Like 26, 30 something yards. But I mean, the difference between Christian Kirk and Hollywood Brown based on 2021 alone is just 1 touchdown and like 30 yards. And obviously a lot more, receptions too, but they're basically the same player. One of them just was able to actually be used in a more yak version than the other. So that was Brown. So
yeah, there's just so many moving pieces with that, right? Because like, well, okay, Kirk did that, but of course, Hopkins was out a lot. He's going to be out 6 games, but he's also out quite a bit. But now you have Ertz as part of the offense, right? And then is Rondale Moore going to get more touches? So there's so many variables here. But I think Brown is going to be a really great part of the offense. And, Murray is good throwing deep. Maybe he ends up becoming that deep threat, and that's what sets him apart. So we'll see, right?
I was going to say, maybe what Marquise Brown can become is sort of like a Michael Floyd role. He'll have a few big plays here and there. He'll be a good, chunk yardage guy, but he's not the guy you're going to go to when, you're down in the red zone. He might catch a few lucky touchdowns, but I think he's going to be that like 2B kind of, role.
We were talking about this a little before the show, and I'm telling you, and some people might think I'm being too optimistic with this comparison, but like, I think Hollywood Brown, the type of player he is, like the high end, if he's in the right offense with the right quarterback, like he's like a Tyreek Hill type of player. So I know that's like, one of the best receivers in the NFL, right? But that's the kind of player he is. So want to get a couple comments in here. Jacob's having a rough week. Mike Mills just broke up with me, and I'm a Cardinals fan. Pain is all over me, man. So you're
find your vice, dude. Find your vice.
Yeah. We got real quick say hey to a couple folks who jumped in here. Deontay Singleton, I believe with this defense rotation of players keeping fresh legs on the field, offense, it's going to have big plays. We're going to have 10 plus wins. Heard it here first. I like it. So yeah, I think Hollywood's going to be really good. I just wonder if there's too many mouths to feed. Are the numbers, I think he's going to be a big part of the offense, make big plays. I'm just not sure if the numbers are going to be as impressive as people hope, right? So I think there was a question here that I thought was really interesting, though. This is Jordan P's got a question. Do we think Rondale Moore is going to be used downfield much more as a vertical intermediate threat this year, or will he still fairly be in the same role as last year? What do you think, Aarron?
That is a great question. I think he's going to be, targeted deeper downfield. So if you look at his average depth per target, which is under the advanced stats, for those who don't know on Pro Football Reference, they're pretty easy to understand in a way, but his average depth of target should increase. So I'm going to say yes to this just based on everything that happened. I don't need to rehash. We talk about the additions, and what's going to happen and what needs to happen. So I hope so, because Murray can play to his strengths in that deep ball and kind of be like the Western version of Josh Allen, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when Christian Kirk signed right with the Jaguars, the thought was initially, okay, Rondale Moore is going to step into the Christian Kirk role, which means he'll get some more of those downfield targets because Kirk got some of those, right? So we'd see more of that. Yay. And then they trade for Hollywood Brown. Everyone's like, oh no, Hollywood Brown is going to take the Christian Kirk role, and Rondale Moore is going to be stuck back where he was before, right?
That was my thought.
Yeah. And then DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for 6 games. Like, okay, so Hollywood Brown maybe is going to play some outside, at least in the first 6 games. So maybe Rondale Moore does get more of those. And then there's a whole other wrench, right? Rondale Moore playing, does Rondale Moore be part of the answer to account for what we've lost with Chase Edmonds, right?
Oh.
So it's like a freaking person. I don't know. It's so how do you figure this out? So my best guess is that he will. I mean, he wasn't used downfield hardly at all. He had a few big plays. I do think they're going to use him a little more downfield. I think he's going to get a little more of the Christian Kirk kind of looks, which Christian Kirk got some of the intermediate and deep sometimes, right? I think he'll get a little bit more of that, but not to the degree Kirk did. I do think they'll still use him a lot on jet sweeps and screens. He's the perfect player for those things. Maybe a little bit out of the backfield too. But I think it will be more, but not as much as Kirk. I don't know. What do you think?
Sorry, I got distracted by Paul G's last comment. I'm just
let's take.
I'm trying to figure out who Van Buren Brown is. Maybe he's just referencing me.
But Van Buren, he's saying to you, Van Buren.
Got it.
Hollywood Brown was in more running offensive ball. Okay, that's just where. Yeah. Okay. I read student papers all the time, so I learn how to interpret if maybe someone missed something like that. So, yeah.
In terms of Rondale Moore's usage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're right. He is good with the lateral stuff, the jets, the bubbles. I mean, even there could be a trick play in there, double pass off of that on a jet on the goal line. I mean, Patrick Peterson ran that years ago when he completed his only pass to Fitzgerald, I think. And so I'm just I'm excited to see where he does get the targets, because it needs to be downfield. It has to be more than 5 yards, because if this reverts back to bubble screens in 2019, I don't even know what I'm going to do.
I definitely want to see more of him this year. And he was a little banged up down the stretch. So that was part of it. But Paul, you and me both, my friend. You and me both. My eyesight is also awful.
I got bad vision. So
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, when Moore's type player, when you get the ball in his hands, he can do a lot of damage. Jordan P saying he should be used like Debo, not run as much, but use him like Debo.
I
I
was going to
mean,
say to Agent 47, like
mhm,
he's dangerous when he actually gets the ball
mhm.
that's in positive space. So his depth of targets should at least be 7 yards downfield, because then, you're placing the ball in a more open spot than, somewhere that is behind like the X receiver right on the
Mhm.
line of scrimmage. So
Yeah. So, and underscore saying more reminds me of a Beasley player, type player. He can make you get those third down conversions. I mean, he's a different player in terms of how he moves, but he is in that he can get you those third down because like what he can do, he's got so much wiggle and elusiveness that you get him the ball 6 yards, 4 yards down, from away from a first down. He can get you those extra yards better than anyone else on this team, I think. Than other than, I mean, Hopkins can do that pretty well but just the way he moves, he can make people miss. So yeah, for sure. And yeah, don't leave out AJ Green, more or less from him this season. I think he actually had a decent number of yards last year. I think he's going to have less yards, or maybe the same, but I think it was around 700 or so. I think
yeah,
somewhere around there. I think he's going to be about the same or less, but
I'd agree.
still be valuable in where he gets them. Because it comes back to that whole thing we've talked about before, is sometimes less volume doesn't necessarily mean you're worse or less effective, right? If you have a really good set of pass catchers and they're all healthy and they're all contributing, if you're getting, 5 really good targets instead of 8 bad targets, right? That can be better. So let's see. You want to got a question here that earlier. I think this is a little optimistic. What are the odds that Cameron Thomas can get 10 sacks in year 1?
Um, I don't know. I'm not too positive with 10. If we're being hard on 10, I'm going to give it a 4.
Yeah.
I think he might be able to get 5 or 6. That would be even good for a rookie. I mean, it's a backwash, not backwash, but it's a backlog of players at the position. Who knows how much playing time he's going to get?
I would agree with you as a 4. Like, it's all about, does he get the playing time? Does he get the snaps? Because like I think he has the talent.
Oh yeah,
Mixed with the fact that Vance Joseph shows he has an ability to scheme up pressure. I mean, Dennis Gardeck got 7.5 sacks, right? And and I'm not trying to say he isn't good, but like he never done. This was a guy who was undrafted,
right.
rookie free agent, right? So I think if he gets that, if he somehow secures that outside linebacker job across from Golden and becomes the guy who's getting the majority of the snaps, then I think it could happen. But the question is, does that happen? And that's the part that I'm less sure about in his rookie year, right? So, let's see. I think there was a great question here. Which of the Cards draft picks will have the best chance to make the team and play significant snaps? Who do you think? I mean, I think there's a lot that will make the team, obviously. So obviously it's a precursor to that. But who do you think? Which player do you think of the rookies has the best chance to play significant snaps for the Cardinals this year?
I mean, it's going to sound contradictory, but I am going to go with Cam Thomas. I didn't know who he was when we drafted him, but seeing some of the film, and I was just like, this guy's, at least from what I saw, he's really close to the skill set of J.J. Watt. In a way, I'm not comparing that they are exactly the same. I think he will get significant snaps, but I just think there's going to be a rotation put in, like one of our other lovely commenters put, and it's going to be hard for him to see the field. But I would say Cam Thomas.
So for me, it is between him and McBride. I think McBride is going to get a fair number of snaps, especially with the fact that Max Williams is still recovering from his injury.
Right.
But if with Cam Thomas, it's just this I'm really not sure how they're going to do that those edge rusher rotations, because there's so many guys there, right? I mean, because I think there's a good likelihood that the way they do it is Marcus Golden starts on one side, and on running downs, it's Devin Kennard because he sets a good edge. And then on passing downs, they're rotating in Myjai Sanders, Cam Thomas, Dennis Gardeck, and rotating those guys and going with the hot hand and keeping them fresh. If that's what happens, they're all going to see the field, but he's not going to get as many snaps as McBride. But if he earns being the number one guy in the rotation, or even earns the starting job out there, then Cam Thomas, right? So that's the question for me. Does he break through and get to be, that starter? If he doesn't, I think it's Trey McBride who's going to get more snaps. But, I think this is an interesting wild card here that Soul Pancakes, Keontae Ingram, because if he snags that, because they seem to want to do a rotation at the running back, which I support, keep the guys healthier and fresher. And if he ends up being the guy, instead of, a lot of people think it's going to be, Benjamin, but if Keontae Ingram ends up being part of that kind of dual back rotation, then, and underscore saying the same thing, he could be his line 1-2 punch with Connor being here and coach staff like him and what he could bring this offense. What are your thoughts? I think Brett Coleman loves him. And someone made this comment earlier, and I'm prepping a video for him, so I'm probably giving away something, but Kareem Hunt is one of the players that he plays like. That's the comp in terms of the way he runs. Not saying, he's got to prove it, right? And that's we compare players to good NFL players all the time. That doesn't mean they're going to do it, but Brett Coleman loved him. And so I don't know. I think those three guys seem like the best likelihood. If I had to put my hat on one of them, I feel like it's McBride, because I feel like he's the one who's most, that they seem most likely to, they're most committed to getting him in there early, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We have gone an hour and 2 minutes. So a lot of great questions from the chat. Is there anything else that you want to kind of talk about? Actually, this is a good question. Maybe we can use this on a way out. And then if there's anything else you want to leak, who do you think will be better, Thomas or Myjai Sanders? Cam Thomas or Myjai Sanders?
Thomas. That's just my answer.
I think so too. I think Myjai Sanders has a high potential. He's got a really quick first step. He's twitchy, but I really like Thomas's potential. So I'm going to go with Thomas. Sanders has some good potential, but I'm going to go with Thomas. And Agent 47 likes Thomas more as well. I like them both. So we've gone over an hour. Aarron, anything you want to kind of talk about that's kind of clear your notebook that's on the table that you didn't get to talk about tonight?
I don't think so. I mean, just we appreciate every single one of you guys being out here. Make sure you go read Joe's essay on freaking what's the website again?
It's on Revenge of the Burd.
That's what it is. Yeah, Revenge of the Birds. Do that. I am the site expert over at Raising Zona. Trying to spearhead that. Make sure you get content out there for you guys every day. If not, be still more frequent. And seriously, any questions, any feedback, any stuff you guys want to see, feel free to message me. My Twitter handle is right there.
Awesome. Make sure you follow his, Aaron's Twitter. Check out his stuff on Raising Zona. He does good work over there. Want to say hey to some of the folks just dropped in here. Bill, sorry we talked about this a little earlier. I think those are the positions we feel like they need to. Hopefully they will. Lance just dropped in. Thanks for being here. Just lost our flag football tournament. Oh man, well, good turnout. Played hard. Let's go Cards. Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. Man, we appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for all the kind words. Listen, I appreciate everything you guys do being here. It's a joy for us to get to do this. And it means so much that you appreciate it, and that you all are here, and your questions and comments help make this a great experience as well. So thank you all for being here. Sorry, we're gonna kind of end it here, so we're not gonna be able to get all your questions, but we'll do this next week on Thursday. Make sure you join us. Same time, same place. Peace, everyone.
See you guys.
And I'm gonna put up my shout out to the channel members. I almost forgot that. That is priority. I want to thank everyone who supports the channel. See y'all later.